Good morning.
Good
At
morning.
Rodney Boyd, I had some prevailing wage folks in here today.
Yes, Jamie. Yeah. Well, because there are 3 weeks left to go in session, and the heat in the kitchen is getting hotter. So, prevailing wage is one of those issues that is still up in the air. And as you pointed out before, this is not a sort of a slam dunk policy conversation. I mean, obviously the governor would like to get a prevailing wage provision passed. It is quote unquote a priority of a huge chunk of the Republican leadership, but there are some conservative voices and some conservative members that aren't ready to push the prevailing wage button. And until some of these other things get worked out, it's just not going to be certain. It is an issue. It is a priority on the list of priorities of work and labor reform, but it's not a consensus issue. If you remember early in session, right to work, another pillar of labor reform, was a consensus issue, pretty much sailed through the legislature and got signed into law so early in session till it is an old or non-news story at this point, even though it was a very historic legislation.
Well, and it's to get rid of the prevailing wage, it's passed the House, but the Senate is a different animal, correct?
It's not only a different animal, it is a different species. And we see some of that playing out, and you'll see more of it and hear more about it this week because the House passed a budget, sent it over to the Senate, and the Senate, in its different way of doing things, is having a very rough time sort of figuring out what aspects of the House budget they will endorse, support, and send back to the House. And so this week, Jamie, will be consumed, I think, with a very intense budget debate. And the reason that I mention that is because the more time you spend working on the budget, the more time you spend working on other things, less time you spend working on prevailing wage.
I love this Uber and Lyft story because it's so interesting to have conservatives like Bob Onder, and Senator Bob Onder and Kirk Matthews stepping up and supporting a business that generally is, well, I don't know, the people who were really pushing it are more of the liberal, young, millennial types, who...
Yeah, but kudos to them because they pushed past sort of the policies of the corporations and to the principles of the business model. If you like having Missourians own small businesses and being able to take a depreciating asset like their car and turn it into a source of revenue generation as an independent business, and I think that's what Senator Onder, Representative Matthews, that's what they saw. And I think as a hat nod to Senator Onder, the governor signing the bill today in St. Charles at the community college, just to say, hey, and the other thing to remember, the St. Charles region, their leadership, they were calling for this legislation very early in session. So I really kudos to them for looking past the corporate politics and policy of the businesses.
Well, that's why I've tried to convince people, and this happened even during the Trump-Clinton election, that conservatives, or namely people who are more libertarian, I'm not talking about Republicans necessarily, because generally Republicans wouldn't go, they're like the guys who still stand in the way of medical marijuana, and they weren't lifting a finger to help these guys, it's Uber guys. But I'm talking about the real conservatives out there, the ones who are all about freedom and the Constitution and small business and economic freedom. They have a lot in common with the normal, average, everyday person. So, if you're just a millennial, you're 27, and you think you have more symmetry with Democrats or the left, the reality is you probably don't if you get right down to it and think about it.
Well, I'll tell you, it's a good day for Missouri. Your point is well taken. It's a good day for our state. It opens up a market that has been sort of stymied here for the last 5 years. And I think it will have a direct impact on that demographic you're talking about. People who may not have ever voted for a Republican will find themselves benefiting from this market being opened up by conservative leaders like Bob Onder, Kirk Matthews, and others that helped them get it done. But I think the benefits of this law will be to a lot of people, as you highlighted, that don't consider themselves conservative or may have never voted for a Republican.
So what becomes of the taxicab commission?
The taxicab commission will still regulate taxicabs. I mean, and that was always their core mission, taxicabs and sort of. And remember, their jurisdiction was limited and is limited to the St. Louis City and County.
Right.
So they never had jurisdiction in St. Charles. They never had jurisdiction in Jefferson County, Franklin County, and any other surrounding counties. So they will still remain intact as it relates to taxicabs within their jurisdiction. This was a business model, Jamie, that transcended any particular city or county border and would allow people who had this app, as you and I have talked about, who may want to originate a fare in Columbia, Missouri, bring it to St. Louis, or originate a fare in Jefferson County and bring it to St. Louis, or vice versa. And having a statewide framework allows people to work across those local boundaries without infringing on any specific local law. So the MTC will continue to regulate taxi cabs in their jurisdiction.
Yeah, the Taxi Cab Commission. That's like right out of a Dickens novel. Why, we are the Taxi Cab Commission, of course. We are the arbiters of all things taxi cab. It's like, oh, get out of here. Good for them. I'm glad it's a defeat for the taxi cab Nazis. You can't say anything because you know people on the commission.
But it's a victory for the people of our state.
Yes, it is. It is a victory. As Rodney Boyd would say, it's a great day for the state of Missouri, my friend.
Absolutely.
All right, brother. Host of Insider Talk from 12 to 1 on Sundays.
Jamie, tell your folks to stay tuned to the budgets in Missouri and Washington, D.C. Big weeks on both budget fronts.
All right, buddy.